Welcome to Whispers, everybody, on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog. It is 6:07 p.m., 61 degrees out, and it's raining off and on. Everybody here in downtown Wheeling, give us a call, 304-214-1600. If you're out of the area, 866-514-1600.
The only thing I can say good about this weather, it's cleaning the pollen out of the air.
That's nice.
Yes.
Well, it is, because it's been miserable.
We needed some rain.
And it's a cold rain,
flowers
too, though.
I know it. The temperature's dropped 15 degrees, probably, since early this afternoon. It was beautiful when I came in at 11:30.
When I woke up at 7, it was really nice. It was great.
I'm not a big fan of heat, per se, but I love when, like, it's a hot day and the feeling that outside gets, like, right before the rain comes.
Yeah.
It just gets a little cooler, a little cloudier. I just love that. That's my favorite time. I was outside with my dad, and it was great.
Did you walk your dog today?
No.
You ever walk your dog?
No. She's outside.
You don't walk your dog? How are you going to build a bonding relationship with your dog
Jordan.
if you don't walk him?
He wrestles with her.
If she wants to eat, I give it to her. So she's like, "Oh, Daddy, num-nums."
Are you
Nums.
going to be calling the dog?
I know this is going to be
dog
one
abuse
of those nights.
agency?
Jordan Klein, the dog whisperer.
Now I'm going to call the dog whisperer because he would say you're abusing her by not walking her.
What? She's got like a dog trolley in the yard. She's great. She loves outside.
There's something different about walking them.
What?
There is. There is. I mean, I let mine run like a crazed animal over behind House of the Good Shepherd or whatever that is, and I let her go swimming. But then when we walk, it's a focused energy, and she's really calmed down when she gets in the house after a long walk like that.
The last few weeks, Jordan has had a close relationship with his dog, and now it's over.
Yeah. As those things
start,
where toxins start working out of his system, he'll stop barking at her, and they won't say sweet nothings in each other's ear anymore.
He stops fighting over the dog bone.
Yeah, absolutely. You like those bacon strips, huh?
I never knew they weren't bacon.
He fried some of those
up.
up.
Open the bag.
These things are delicious.
He just can't read. What are these, Nick? Are these microwavable? Sure, Jordan. Go ahead and put them in your baggie. They'll make your breath minty. Look at his teeth. They cleaned them.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, had my last rabies shot today. It was nice.
I bet you it's over $200 down the drain again. And
yeah, well.
You won't die, though.
We have a phone call. This is Mr. Mountaineer.
Hi, Mr. Mountaineer.
Mr. Mountaineer is going to tell you a little story about your dog.
All righty.
If you don't walk your dog very much, those num-nums between your legs are going to come off.
Oh, my.
Okay, just be careful, Mr. Mountaineer. You know what the Supreme Court did today.
What, they pull someone's num-nums off?
No, they're trying awfully damned hard.
Well, I ain't got very many left, so they ain't got nothing to get off of me.
No num-nums on the Mountaineer.
No num-nums.
Thank you.
They fell off.
Thanks for your call.
Bye.
It is a brave man to go on the radio and say, my num-nums have fell off.
You don't know Mr. Mountaineer.
No, I don't. I don't understand. All right.
Jeez Louise.
Oh, I'm going to call our guest. You guys talk amongst yourselves.
All right. With the Penn trip coming on, I have spoke to the Elm Grove DeCarlos. Spoked English major. To the Elm Grove DeCarlos, which is arguably the best DeCarlos in the area. And they have agreed to sponsor our food for the Penn. Help us out with some pizzas. That way we got some food.
And we have people coming from out of state, so they'll be able to get introduced to it. Yeah.
So it'll be great.
They will know the DeCarlos tradition, and they'll come back.
Also, everybody out there, next weekend, our little Nikki is graduating from college. Woo! Woo! Yay!
That was my wife cheering me on.
She's drawing.
Good thing I'm on the phone.
Yeah, Lola would have had some words again.
She would have said, "It's about time."
I'm just waiting for him to say he's already signed up for his master's class.
Now, if I did that, I would be going.
Boy, look at him, not me.
If he did that, he'd be divorced.
Well, no, I'd be doing it while I was working. So I think hopefully you can do that at night.
Our little Nikki's growing up, everybody. So.
Yay.
Our guests are ready, so why don't you introduce them while I answer the other line?
Boom! Tonight we have Mr. Mark Morin and Mark Skirman.
No, he just
from
does these
Weird
noises.
US. I do not do weird noises.
She looks at me and goes, "Ba-boom."
Oh, whatever. Yeah. From Weird US, they also do Weird New Jersey. It's a series of books that focus on local legends and best-kept secrets. How you doing, fellas?
Hey, we're doing good here in New Jersey.
Good.
Now we're gonna have to. Both of you are named Mark.
Yeah, so it's going to be hard to tell us apart.
So we'll just say Mark, and you guys say yes. And
yes.
We can speak as though you are one. And,
we are Mark.
Yes, we're Siamese twins with the same name.
Siamese Mark.
Yeah, your mom had a lot of imagination.
Now, which one is Mark Moran?
That would be me.
Okay, and then Mark, I'm going to try the best here.
Skirman, rhymes with merman.
Very good. I got it down. Got it right. Okay, so we can kind of get the voices down a little bit. All right, very good. Now, what exactly prompted you to start going around New Jersey, a state that's much maligned, and start looking for weird stuff?
Hey, wait, what do you mean maligned? Does that mean
I was
informed?
Is it maligned all the way down in West Virginia?
Yeah, you better watch what you're saying, Nick.
Well, okay, that's a good point.
Nick's an English major, so he likes to use huge words that nobody gets.
Yeah.
What do people in West Virginia find so funny about New Jersey?
Actually, I was watching a TV show the other day, How I Met Your Mother, and someone said something about move to New Jersey, and I hate New Jersey, and he had a T-shirt that said I hate New Jersey. I don't know. I don't understand it. Why do
That's
people hate
just
New Jersey?
Hoboken.
Yeah, I've never been to New Jersey, so I don't know.
So how can you hate it?
I don't. I've never been there. So
I'm so glad you two guys are you're taking up for me. I can sit back and be quiet now because you're doing my job.
Well,
I made them angry, and it's only been a minute.
Well, that's sort of reputation that New Jersey has around the country is partially why we started Weird New Jersey magazine. It was sort of a celebration of the unique aspects of New Jersey that everybody else in TV and radio were sort of poking fun at. We decided, well, we'll put together a magazine that actually points out these things, these odd aspects of the state, and rather than make fun of it, it would celebrate that. So
sure.
That's sort of how it all began, really.
So for someone like me that's never been to New Jersey, what kind of weird things can I find in New Jersey? The only thing I can think of right now is the Jersey Devil.
Oh,
that's the first thing that always comes up. That old thing, yeah.
Well, that's sort of the Jersey Devil is the tip of the iceberg, but he is kind of like our the best known piece of some people consider it a cryptozoological being, and some people consider it just a local myth. Whatever you consider it, that's fine. We document all sorts of those aspects of the story because we're just out there to document any weirdness, uniqueness, unusual things of any nature. It could be anything from a Bigfoot sighting or a UFO sighting to a ghost in a haunted hotel, or just an odd roadside piece of architecture. So it really runs the gamut, And then we just released our 32nd issue of the magazine, so it obviously it's pretty deep well.
Do you have anything on Donald Trump's hair? I mean, that has got to be at the top of your list of things to try and catch.
We'd like to put it in our museum someday.
If we could wrestle it from his head.
That's it. That's it.
Once he dies, it's going to run off.
Now that's a comb over, right?
Yeah.
Well, what we started out to do was find like little unique places in New Jersey where the tales were only told like
not outside of the perimeters of the town. So we went into these towns and said, what's weird around here? We would go to the local bar or the local diner and just ask people, hey, what's strange about your town? And then they would say, like, oh, there's either this crazy guy that's, putting tinfoil on his windows, or there's just a gravity road or something like that.
Is there really somebody putting tinfoil on their windows?
Actually, a few.
Okay. Oh,
nice.
Is there a reason?
That's almost like an epidemic, actually.
They're obviously fending off the aliens.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Of course, Nick.
Of course. We need to get ours taped up.
It's actually the best way to prevent the mind control beams that are coming down from the satellites.
So these are the kind of people we deal with on a daily basis.
And they all have a story to tell. So we go out and we're sort of like investigative reporters, but we have to take it with a grain of salt. We don't tell our readers whether the stuff is completely factual or not. We're very subjective in that regard, and we allow them to sift through and decide. Not to say we certainly don't make up any stories. It's just that some of the people that we talk to seem so out there that sometimes a reader will wonder whether they're for real or not. And we can assure them that we certainly don't make up these stories, but these stories are out there circulating around, and our job is just to document them.
For example, did you know that there's the portal to the inner Earth right here in New Jersey?
The what?
The what?
There's a portal to the inner Earth right here in New Jersey, and we have a man called Dr. Beard who is going to take us there this summer.
We're really looking forward
to the inner Earth, or just the portal?
I hope it's the inner Earth and not just the portal.
Oh, me too.
I hate to go through the portal.
Would this be like spelunking or what?
No, I think it's deeper than that.
Oh, okay. You might end up in West Virginia.
That's true, and then you really will get weird.
You will just walk out of a coal mine or something.
Like,
well, take our phone number and we'll save you.
We've been traveling to the inner Earth down there for years, right?
So, has he been to the inner Earth?
Oh, yes, many times.
I'm sure he has.
And the creatures that live there are about 7 feet tall.
Well, there's all kinds of creatures.
Oh, right. There's the inner crust
civilizations of people.
I want this guy's number. We got to talk to this guy.
He has very long fingernails.
He does.
I think you should see a picture of him before you decide whether you want to talk.
You said he was Mr. Beard. Is that a
Dr. Beard?
Dr. Beard. I'm so sorry. He's got his PhD.
7 years of medical school to be called Mr. Beard.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh. Well, he was too busy to cut his fingernails. I mean, it's wow. And so 7-foot creatures in inner Earth.
Yes, and very long blonde hair.
Okay.
Those are the good creatures.
So what's weird in your neck of the woods?
Nick.
Yeah.
Come on, Nick. You got to have one story from your neighborhood that's weird.
Well, I was actually thinking about this earlier. You talked about roadside attractions. My wife was telling me, and I think she took me by one time. This place, it's in Wheeling, where it used to be. She called the Christmas Yard. The Christmas house, and it was just this woman, if I remember correctly. Actually, is Lisa, is her mic on? Can you describe the Christmas house? Because you've been past there many times.
The Christmas house is just a regular 2-story house, except you can't see the siding on it or anything. It has great big Christmas boxes in the front yard. All the decorations were like strung over the whole entire house. When you walked, they didn't really have a fence. They had nothing but Christmas decorations, angels, different kind of Santa Claus. The whole entire house is covered, and it's in the city,
A very small lot, and it was just nothing. I don't think you could walk through the yard. It was nothing but Christmas.
This is year-round?
Year-round, up until recently, for some reason. I guess maybe the person moved or passed away or something, but now it's all gone, which is kind of sad.
The Grinch stole Christmas.
The Grinch stole Christmas.
He did.
But
it was a sad
when
moment.
I went by and saw it, it was like July, and there you are. It's just, it was loaded.
Now, see, what we would do is we would go interview the next door neighbor.
Yeah.
Find out what
they
happened.
felt about it.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they. And the way I heard it is, other people mentioned it to me. I guess people would drive by this place too, to see what, to see it. And that of course attracted neighbor or people going by.
You could see it from the interstate too, so that was kind of like, hey, I got to find that house.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm pretty sure the neighbors would have talked to you and had some reservations about the Christmas house.
Well, see, that's what we're all about. We're about documenting all these little places that nobody's really ever heard about or has never really witnessed outside their own little town, and that's really what it's all about for us.
Well,
we actually have a whole chapter in each of our books and in each of the magazines called Personalized Properties that focuses on just that specific subject. It's people who have done these over-the-top sort of displays or decorations on their personal property, their personal space, and what's funny about it is it's I mean the places themselves look great and are really interesting, but what we usually find is that the people behind them are where the real story lies. I mean it's finding out what motivates these people to do these totally insane things. And I mean Christmas decorations is one thing, but we've been to these places where people built these entire grottos of tiny little gemstones, and just transformed their home into like a castle of nearly biblical proportions. And these things are located all throughout the country, and they're really fascinating. The people behind them are usually pretty fascinating too.
They hear that different drum beat to say.
Yeah.
Well, I know unfortunately, the Christmas guy passed away about 3 years ago.
Okay.
His niece just called. And, of course, somebody purchased the house and tore everything down, and now it's painted a mundane navy blue. But do you remember seeing a story about some guy that built, I think, like his whole house out of crushed beer cans?
That's in Texas?
Actually,
yeah.
There's a crushed beer can house in Maryland. Silver Springs, Maryland, I think, is the town. And then we went out to the beer can house in Houston, Texas, and they're not crushed, right, Mark? They're flattened. No, I guess they were. They were flattened, and it was sort of his own brand of aluminum siding.
Okay.
That's like taking recycling to a whole new level,
Before recycling was cool.
Yeah.
And he drank every beer himself, so we have a tremendous amount of respect for him.
Yeah, good for him. Good for him.
That's taking an initiative.
Yes.
I mean, you got to be dedicated to the craft,
Yeah.
Now, I got a question. You got like a whole section. I got Weird U.S. right in front of me. I have the book on albinos.
Here we go.
And it just...
Jordan is really fascinated by albinos.
Wait till he gets to the other groups he's going to...
Well, let's start on albinos and we'll move from there.
Okay, well, first of all, the first thing I'd like to say is that, we're not trying to be politically incorrect, I should say. We document these tales that have been told around specific communities, and we've found that in a lot of cases they repeat, not the exact tales, but unique forms of the tales will be found throughout the country. The very beginning of Weird New Jersey, one of the places that Mark had personal experience was a place in very local to us called Albino Village. And the legend was that it was a small enclave of albino families that had settled down by this dirty little river. And you would actually have to drive under this old railroad tunnel to get there. And then once you got through this single-lane tunnel, this old stone bridge, you would go usually in the middle of the night and honk your horn, and then the albinos would come out and attack you.
Oh, God.
That's like Knock Knock Street.
Well, it was a great place to bring your date. Although in actuality, there really were no albinos living there. So we really don't know how the legend started, but one of the greatest days in our history was when somebody actually brought an old photo from 1967, and somebody had tacked a sign up that said "Albino Village this way." That was like the holy grail for us, saying, "Wow, it really did exist and was called that name."
But the thing that we found, as we sort of branched out, was that these alleged albino colonies did pop up in other states, and I think it has something to do with, I'm not a psychologist, but it seems to have something to do with people's inherent fear of albinos, and they
or anything that comes out at night.
Yeah, these local legends, which really are archetypal stories dealing with people's subconscious fears. There are certain things that pop up, like albinos and midgets, and
that's Jordan's next question.
Right?
Oh, no.
I see him laughing already. Yeah, and there are midget villages in the United States.
Yes, there are several right here in New Jersey. Midgetville, like Albino Village, was one of the first legends that we had heard talked about here in New Jersey that really got us started on what we do, which is we would hear these word-of-mouth legends that had been passed around for generations. And one day Mark and I just decided, well, rather than just pass on the stories to our readers, let's get in the car, let's get a camera and a notebook, and we'll go out, we'll put together the vague directions and the clues that we've gotten about these places, and let's go see what we find and document what we find. And in most cases, the Midgetvilles sort of turned up a little short.
Don't get long in the tooth.
We didn't find any little people living in them. The prevailing legend is that these tiny little communities were,
You just can't help yourselves, can you?
They were built with scaled-down houses to house either. In some cases, they were retired circus performers, or in other cases, they were actually munchkins, actors from The Wizard of Oz that had somehow gotten together, pooled their money together, and built a community of scaled-down houses to accommodate.
Now, what did they call this community?
Well, in most cases, it's called Midgetville.
I was hoping Munchkinland.
That's true. There is some of them are called Munchkinland. There is one in Vienna, Virginia, that's called Zubyville. There is Hobbitville in Utah. It goes by a number of names. There's Tiny Town in Long Island, New York. So just to show you how widespread this phenomenon is.
Now, have you actually? You mentioned Hobbitville. Have you actually ever found somebody that's tried to build a house kind of like the Hobbits? Like you would see in Lord of the Rings, the movie. Kind of built underground with a round door. Kind of how J.R.R. Tolkien described it. Anything like that at all?
Oh yeah.
Oh really?
We have.
There goes your dream, Nick.
Underground dwellings we've documented all over the country in varying degrees. Everything from a very small underground dwelling here in New Jersey to a complete. We did one story in Kansas where a man had converted an old Army missile silo, acres underground. He converted it into a private home.
Oh, nice!
So it just underground dwelling is actually
that's interesting.
It's become very sort of chic and popular in very bizarre ways. But some of these places are really really rustic and strange.
See, when we first started this magazine, probably about 16 years ago, we said, well, why isn't anybody documenting these things or writing about them? And we thought it was so ridiculous to start a magazine like this that it would never fly. And little did we know that it would just open up a floodgate of people that really want to tell us a story, and it shows you how many strange places are actually all around the United States.
Now, what exactly is the oddest thing that you each have, you've been around the United States, you've been getting these stories for years. Is there just something that just stuck out in your mind that's just the oddest thing you just can't get your mind around it? Or
Well, that's the number one question we're always asked is, what's the weirdest thing?
I have to ask.
And the next thing is, will you ever run out of stories?
And I figured you wouldn't. I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff out there.
And usually the third question is, how do I get to Midgetville?
Well, I got a big picture
That's
here.
That's over the rainbow.
Well, as Mark says, people always do ask what the weirdest thing that you've seen is, but what tends to happen is that it's usually it changes from day to day and from week to week, depending on what sort of stories we're going to investigate. Like one day, the weirdest thing might be what we find in the basement of some long abandoned insane asylum from the 1800s. And I mean, you get this incredibly strange feeling walking through these darkened tunnels underneath it, and then the next day we're out in the woods, and we come across somebody that's been basically living under a junk heap for years, and then accosts us and looking like some big terrifying monster. And
Dr. Beard?
For that day, that is by far the weirdest thing you've ever seen.
I think that the people are more stranger than actually the places.
Sure.
I think one of the strangest stories we ever heard was that. Remember that guy that was tied to the tree, Mark? That Injun Joe guy. He was just tied to a tree in the middle of the woods and
in the middle of nowhere.
he just wanted to stay there.
And we offered to untie him, and he
well, that was nice of you guys.
What's that?
That was very nice of you guys.
Well, yeah, but he said all he would say to us was, "I'm from Canada."
Oh, great!
That makes a lot of sense.
And we said, but you're gonna dehydrate out here. You're gonna starve. Somebody has to do something for you. He goes, "No, I'm playing a game." And we were like, playing a game with who? There isn't anybody for miles. We were like out on the Appalachian Trail. It was out there, And there's this guy in tiny little gym shorts and an Indian feather strap.
I bet she said this was a good game.
I remember another time we were in the Pine Barrens of South Jersey, and somebody had said, well, there's these 30 or so starched white shirts nailed up about 30 feet up in the air. We were like, well, this has to be fake. So we went to investigate it, and sure enough, we're out in the middle of nowhere, and there's these bright white starched shirts. I mean, stiff, and they're nailed like crosses to the trees.
But the funny thing was, it was over the swamp, so they were about 10 feet above the water level. So I don't even know how anybody would get up. You can't really put a ladder on the bottom of the swamp and climb up these trees. It was very out there.
Did you ever find out who put them there, for what
reason?
No,
we never did. Actually, that's one of those situations where you see it and then you think, there must be an insane person watching you from afar, and it's probably best to get out of there while they're getting.
Yeah, they're watching your reactions, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, going back to the Indian guy, did you actually go out looking for him, or were you just walking and just came across him?
No, most of these things you find by accident.
Okay, okay. Just had to ask.
Now, what about the story of the pig lady?
Which one?
How many of them are there? I only know the one you live or go out by the street and.
Wow.
Pig lady. Well, pig lady is one of those stories where you get this a legend of a. There's usually a tragic backstory to it, meaning that some woman was horribly disfigured in a fire or something like that, and she's now very angry, obviously, and if you go out to a specific road or a bridge or a house in the middle of the night, she'll come out and attack you. There's a number of stories like that around the country, and they all seem to revolve around a sort of a half human, half animal sort of a person, because there's the stories of the pig lady and the goat man and the mule lady and the bunny man, all similar, but they're all unique to the exact point of their origin. Like there's only in the entire country there's only one bunny man, and he inhabits a particular bridge in Virginia.
Now, what does he do?
Well, he was an escaped. Well, the legend was that he was an escaped mental patient.
Aren't they all?
Who ended up somehow in a full bunny regalia with a very large axe, and if you went out to this bridge, he would kill you.
He watched In Search of the Holy Grail too many times.
In the legend, he would hang your dead body from the bridge. So the thing to do when you were in high school in Fairfax County would be to drive out to this bridge and sort of test your courage with your friends to see if you could stand going through this tiny little bridge and risking the wrath of the bunny man. But the beauty of a story in that for us was digging deep into the archives of that particular area, and because we knew the story had been around for a long time, but we wonder where these stories get started. That's really what we're trying to figure out. And in that particular case, we were actually able to uncover some actual newspaper accounts of two instances where a man in a bunny suit did attack local residents with a hatchet.
Wow.
So, there's whenever there's a grain of truth in a legend, it really, for us, that's
kind of freaky.
That's really makes the story come together.
Wow. But the whole point of it for us is, you take your kid, you throw him in the back of the station wagon, you go up the Bunny Man Bridge and hope that, somebody attacks the car. That's what it's all about.
That's a story that'll warm your heart.
Or a goat man.
Now, that's real family entertainment, and it's all for free.
Or if you happen to be in West Virginia, you would go to Point Pleasant and hope that the Mothman swoops down on you, right?
Oh, believe me, these guys have gone and prayed.
You just made Jordan's day. Jordan loves Mothman.
I love the Mothman. I can't help it.
Yeah, we were out there for that big festival. That's a great time.
Oh, were you? We were going to go, but we didn't.
Well, you should.
Next year we will make it.
The town has turned Mothman into a cottage industry out there.
They even have a statue.
They erected a beautiful statue, and they have a museum with a little a recreation of the bridge that fell.
It's like a superhero.
And they get tourists every year to come out and see that, and that says that these stories really have a lot of impact. And they, how many Mothman museums were there on Main Street, Mark?
Yeah, I think when we were filming the History Channel show, that was one of my favorite times out there in West Virginia.
And we have
we got to have something people like.
Yeah. And we had Bashful Billy that happened around here. We actually talked about that on the air. How long ago was that? That's been a while.
A few months.
Yeah, but Bashful Billy, there was supposedly a UFO crash at in Ogilvy Park here, and the guy that we talked to said that the UFO kind of crash landed, let this alien off, and then took off because it was going to die if it stayed in the craft. It made it to like one of the higher points here and died, and they had a drawing in the newspaper of this like dragon in suspenders.
Yeah.
And I'll have to send you this picture. This was the greatest.
Beautiful.
Jordan wanted to get it tattooed.
I would.
Yes.
But it's got like this dragon with the smoke coming out and suspenders.
But it's got like one of the barrels that the old like 50s cartoons. If somebody was naked, they were wearing the barrel with suspenders.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, it's great, and
it's nice to know aliens have modesty.
Yeah, it's. I'm glad they had barrels.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, and supposedly the police covered it over, said it was a burned lady that they found up on this hill. But it's.
The police always love to cover that stuff up.
I know. I mean, if it's a dragon, let's say it's a dragon. That's all I'm asking. So.
Some of our best credible accounts come from policemen and firemen, like the strange stuff they see.
Now, I'm sorry, Jordan. Were you saying?
No, I'm a fireman.
Okay.
Jordan's a fireman.
So you know what I'm saying, right?
I've seen a lot of crazy
He's
stuff.
not credible.
I don't know how credible I am. That's
Now, I mean, you're talking about these weird, the shirts, being out in the yard. One of the things that I remember from your book was this wall that this man built that, and it was one of those stories, like I started reading, it was kind of funny. The next thing you know, it's kind of like a heartwarming kind of story that he built this wall, and then he's had, leaders from around the world that have came to walk the wall. Do you remember which one I'm talking about?
Fred Birchmore's Great Wall.
There we go.
Birchmore's down in Georgia, right?
Yeah, that's the one that's in the book. That was a great story. That was one of my favorites in the book.
Yeah, well, that's the in that particular one. If Fred falls into a number of categories that we cover. I know I mentioned personalized properties before, but also these people fall into a category that we feature called local heroes. And they're heroes not for just what they've done. I mean, Fred was unique because he's this tiny, tiny little old man. He's in his 90s, and he can't weigh more than 100 pounds. Yet somehow he managed to build this this wall of enormously heavy stones all by hand, which must have taken an incredible amount of determination. But it's this amazingly unique effort statement that these people are making, which is really why we feature them. It's not so much the wall that's interesting to us. It's the motivation, and it's this man who stepped outside of the norm and just did something so incredible that we think people should take notice of it, and that's why we feature them. It's really to shine a light on these people and say to everybody, take a look at this. It's incredible. This is inspiring.
Now, you talked about a tiny man, building this wall. That reminded me, for some reason, of the Coral Castle. Have you ever heard about that in Florida?
It's exactly the same scenario.
Yeah, and this was.
I can't even say the word.
Scallion.
Yeah, that's and can you kind of tell us that story? A lot of people may not have heard about it. I know I just showed Jordan, and Jordan kind of hunched his shoulders. This is an amazing story. Go ahead.
Well, he was a 90-pound man. He was only about almost little less than 5 feet tall, and he actually took these huge pieces of coral, carved them himself, and he claimed that he knew the secret of the pyramids and how he could move the stones, and he made this beautiful house to his love lost.
Yes, it's dedicated to his lost love, his sweet 16. He was a Latvian immigrant, and he had been jolted at the altar back in the old back in the old country, and he came here and he dedicated this amazing this coral palace to her down in Florida, and he actually quarried all of the stones himself and cut them all, and some of them were just enormous. I mean, they weighed tons and tons, and nobody has ever been able to figure out how exactly he managed to do this all by himself. And he always worked in the middle of the night too, so that nobody would ever figure out his secret.
I know I'd read that people, they would bring up the coral like on the back of a truck, and then the next morning, he'd worked all night, and then it'd all be off of the truck and stacked up and cut and everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, just overnight. I mean, it was just amazing.
Yeah, it is truly a testament to one man's dedication. It was
perfectly balanced doors and everything. It's
well, actually, when we were there, we couldn't actually get that perfectly balanced door to move.
Oh, really?
They were having a little problem with it.
Well, actually,
advertising it incorrectly.
It was set up on this ball bearing. I mean, it was perfectly balanced. It was set up on a metal ball bearing, and this had been there for obviously decades and decades. So, metal will rust. So it had nothing to do. I mean, his engineering was flawless.
Now, this isn't because neither one of you could move it. I mean,
no.
I mean, it's nothing against you guys.
Muscle strength.
Yeah, you got to put a little oomph behind it.
Up as heavy as it was, you could move it with one finger. That was the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, how heavy was that door?
I think it was 4 tons.
Wow. Wow. I don't know how he moved it. He had to have the Egyptians' help.
Well,
or it was UFOs.
Or the aliens.
I tell you what, we've had a lot of people on here that claim they know where the pyramids came from too.
Yeah, lots of them.
Now, you have to move off from weird U.S. to start going weird world.
It needs to be weird Canadians that happen to be Indian, because apparently there's a lot of those too.
And they're all running casinos, right?
They're tying themselves to trees.
Oh man! Now,
another story I found in your book just now, Underdog, your local hero.
Yes.
We have something similar. We have a moon dog here in Wheeling.
Well, Moondog he really is a celebrity. He's had 2 bobbleheads made from Moondog.
Yeah, they give them out at hockey games.
Yeah.
And what he'll do is he'll ride around after the parade. He rides around all the time, but he always joins, and he's the last attraction on the parade. And he has all these flags that he puts in the back of his bicycle that he that flow behind him as he goes through.
It's like a glorious cape.
Well, but actually, he really does do a service to the community. I don't know how many times I've worked late here, and because the lights are on, he'll shine a light in, and all I have to do is say, I'm okay, and he goes on about his business. But yeah, he drives around all the time, helping people and checking up on people, and he's a great guy.
Yeah, well, we have many local heroes like that in New Jersey. Underdog Lady is she's been on Howard Stern and people like that, and there was a great movie, a documentary made about her, and she's quite a fascinating woman.
Now, did Howard Stern make fun of her, or?
Yes, he actually did. He actually didn't understand what she was all about. She's she's a performance artist.
Sure. Well, Howard Stern doesn't understand what a lot of people are about, but
Moondog's not really a performance artist, but he's got dog in the name.
He's just Moondog.
Yeah.
So where are you all located down there?
We're actually, do you know where the northern panhandle is,
yes,
northern part? So we're kind of close also to...
we're about 45 minutes to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, 45 minutes to Pittsburgh. We're right near the border to both Pennsylvania and Ohio. I think actually right across the river here, you had something in your book, if I remember correctly, about the house that Joe built, is the one with the mule. Does that ring any bells to you?
Oh, not really.
Does anybody know?
We like to pretend that Nick knows what he's talking about sometimes, just to let the show keep flowing.
Somebody out there actually might know what I'm talking about. There's this house that this miner had a mule, and I cannot remember the name of the mule, but the mule supposedly worked. He worked the mule so much that it actually helped build the house because it's all the profit off of the mule. I don't.
What?
Okay. Anyway, you had in your book. You also had the mounds in Moundsville, and that's close to us as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're just right upriver from there.
Well, then you got plenty
10
of
minutes
just around you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Nick's in arm's distance.
Half of it's sitting, right here.
Well, we are, like I said, we're really out to find all these local legends and things that people have never heard of before, and it's a constant, ongoing. I guess you could call us. We're like kind of the real X-Files, in more or less terms. We deal with crazy people. We get crazy letters, and actually today we just got a cassette tape in the mail of somebody that's created this eloptic time resonator, and he can tell us, where these things are located. Unfortunately, he's in prison, but he can't get to them. So.
At least he can mail you things.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Hey, when does Weird West Virginia come out?
I don't know. How many bookstores you got down there?
We have some. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Believe it or not, we have.
You're from New
things.
Jersey, and we should be friends. Combined together. New Jerseyans, West Virginians, we can overcome this.
Well, then come on up. What are you waiting for?
Where exactly is New Jersey?
Poor Nick.
We have about 30 state books out now. We have about 4 more to go. We have a weird kids book out, which is kid-friendly for ages 9 to 12. What else are we doing? We finished a 14-episode thing for the History Channel, kind of like a mini-series. We went around the country and filmed that for...
I bet that was fun.
How'd you get this gig? This sounds like a lot of fun. Were you literally just
Well, it's hard work if you can get it.
Yeah. We ought to come to West Virginia. We got a lot of weird stuff here.
Yeah,
we'll show you around.
Have you ever been to the prison? You had the grave.
Golden Palace.
Oh, Palace of Gold.
Yeah, Palace of Gold.
That's weird.
Murders and things there.
Yeah, it's Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Temple. They call it the new. I can't pronounce.
New Vrindavan.
Okay, there we go. New Vrindavan. That they had built. It's you drive up to it, and the next thing you know, it's just there.
Yeah.
And there's these huge elephants.
It's like
outside.
miles off the paved road, and in the middle of a mountain, and then all of a sudden you see this huge, gigantic palace of gold.
Yeah, it's like you're in India.
And these giant statues of like peacocks flying everywhere. It's
They used
insane.
to have live elephants there before they hit upon hard times. Got caught for murders, but, you know.
Yeah, there was that part. Be careful if you go to take pictures.
Yeah.
And then a certain time of year, they all come. I used to work up the top hill where it's located, and they would always come in
like
great big van loads of them and say, "Where is the Palace of God?" But they would come by the van loads.
Yeah, apparently it's like the big thing to do. Yeah, come on down. We'll show you around the weird wheeling.
Nice. Yes, I've heard of that.
Now, where you mentioned earlier you had ghost stories, and you also said UFOs. How often do you? Well, first off, how often do you get letters in the mail saying, "Check this out, check that out"? How many?
We probably get about 24 emails a day saying, crazy stuff. Not exactly just ghosts, but we get a lot of people that want us to go on ghost investigations with them. We're not really Ghostbusters because we're, I don't think we have any credentials to do that. And
you're not that weird.
Yeah, that's kind of like. Ghostbusting seems like a very boring profession to us, because you just sit around for a long time and actually do nothing.
It's great for us lazy people.
Kind of like that Ghost Hunters on TV,
Yeah, walk around doing your director's log.
Yeah.
Now, how about UFOs? Do you get a lot of UFO requests?
Actually, New Jersey is the 14th state in the nation for UFO sightings.
Oh, really?
It may be because there's like 5 military bases within a 200-mile radius.
Sure,
but,
of course,
there's something flying in the sky. It's got to be a UFO.
Right.
Yeah. So
right.
I mean, it's.
Hey, well, we're linking your books up to our site now, and
good.
That way people can go directly to it, click on the picture of the book cover, and buy your book.
And I'm sure wherever you're at, the local Books A Million or any other stores are there will have your book. Actually, I was at the Books A Million a couple weeks back. They had a very nice display of yours here locally to Wheeling. So
nice.
Yeah.
Well, if people want to get in touch with us, they can either go to weirdus.com or go to weirdnj.com, and we're always around. We're never too far away from people who want to talk to us or ask a question or whatever.
I was going to say, if anybody wants to send you any stories, they can do that through your website, correct?
Yeah, editor at weirdus.com.
Really?
Wow. Editor at
weirdus. Yeah. Well, if you ever decide to do a book on West Virginia, contact us because we can be your tour guides.
Well, then we're going to stay at your house for a couple of days.
That works for me. I live probably in a haunted house, so.
Well, thank you very much for your call. That's all we got with you for this time. We're definitely going to have you back because this was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay.
And we're going to try to get some people to call in with some stories and help add to your collection.
Great.
Well,
Mark Moran would say goodbye too, but his phone just died.
Yeah, we heard that happening earlier. We're hoping everything was okay. You didn't dock him out or something.
The collective Mark from Weird US.
Sorry about that, guys. I'd like to say goodbye too, but the battery in my phone just died.
those things are horrible.
Well, thank you very much for being on with us.
Well, thank you.
Have a good one. Thank you.
You too.
Bye. That was fun.
Yes, it was. I thought they were from Weird Weekly World Report.
Weekly World News.
They don't email me back.
Jeez, and see, I want to talk about like boy meets with frog and all that kind of stuff.
Bat Boy. Wasn't that in the mountains of West Virginia?
Now, why wouldn't they come here and do a book about West Virginia? I think there's a lot of. I mean, go down south. My goodness, I bet you those hollers have stories.
Well, now maybe we could try to help.
Them you can't publish in a book.
Now maybe we could try to help them out next. Because we have next week the 7:00 hour free. So if maybe we could plan on that being our. Let's try to get some weird stories together.
Or I'd like to get Amanda in.
Yeah.
I saw her today, so she said, just to let her know. That was something that came up. She just,
Sure.
Oh, that happens.
Yeah. So, and by
Weird
the way,
things happen.
it's the house that Jack built.
The house.
Jack was
built.
the mule, and it's on the north side of Blair.
Okay, yeah, and I can't remember the exact story, but I remember reading that. I thought it was maybe in their book, but maybe it was
Well,
somewhere
obviously
else, of course.
not. They didn't
obviously
know what the hell
not.
you were talking
but it was.
about.
I think it's where someone told me it was where the 7 Inn is now. They tore down the house.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, and look what they put up.
They should have kept the house that Jack built.
Honestly, the mule stall would have been better than this.
So
Better be quiet here. I might be opening us up. Since you two are the hosts.
So hey,
opening
look
y'all up to a
outside of that
lawsuit.
building. Yeah. Oh man.
Oh, we got 2 minutes until
All
we
right,
take a
everybody.
break.
Yeah. Well, let's avoid the 7 Inn then.
Nobody heard that.
No.
Nobody heard that at all.
No.
All right, give us a call, fellas, fillets. How would you say that?
Not like that.
No,
Tell us some stories if you got them. What is the house that Jack built? Because Nick messed it up.
Yeah, I did. I was trying to remember. It's been a while since I read about it.
304-214-1600.
actually, what we need people to do is, share your stories about weird stuff here, but we'll give everybody the website again. Turn your stories in. Maybe we can get a book written about the weird things in this state.
Down in Gilbert, where we're from, Jordan and I, Jordan, I both were born down there. I know there's this one rock that they found.
I was born in Delaware.
Were you? Yeah. No, you were. That's right. Hey.
But
it's kind of like a corporation.
Yeah, but they found this rock that had supposedly Jesus on it. The image and found in a mine down in I think it's Justice, West Virginia. Now I've never actually stopped. Lisa, you've stopped. What does it look like? Does it look like Jesus? Is it like the toast?
Like the grilled cheese?
Like the chip.
Like the toast.
The potato chip. Yeah.
But I know that's down there. I'm trying to think of stuff. I'm going through, trying to go through all through West Virginia. I know there's a lot of stuff here, but there's got to be stuff elsewhere. Of course, not the Mothman, but the Flatwoods Monster that we had Frank Ficino, which we'll have him back on, not in this coming week, but the week after. He has some news he wants to break on the show. But that would be one maybe. I'm sure we can find all kinds of stuff. We need to get some stuff together.
All kinds of things.
Call us, folkies. Is that better?
Oh my gosh!
Why can't I make up a word?
Lola, save us! Hit the button, Lola.
All right, you're listening to
we're
Whispers
the show.
on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog. We'll be right back after the news. Welcome back to Whispers, everybody, on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog. It is 7:09 p.m., 61 degrees out. Not sure if it's still raining or not. I'm locked inside. Lola's got me trapped. And Nick is off. There is a God.
Wow.
Give us a call, 304-214-1600. If you're out of the area, 866-514-1600.
I didn't make Lola mad, did I?
You probably did.
No, but
what have I done now?
somebody called and said that they wanted to actually take your people skills class.
Really? If I could sign... I'm not that bad. Jeez. I'm a nice guy, right?
I don't even have anything to say to that. That's great.
What have I done wrong?
Nothing, Nick. Why? Did somebody warn about something? Or?
All right.
Did we have a problem?
Do you remember that when we first got on the air with these guys and you start slamming New Jersey? That's what it was being referred to.
Oh, yeah. No, I was playing with them. I was being nice.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It was playful banter.
It was
Yes.
playful banter.
Nick,
You've been watching too much 2.5 Men. Is this Stephen, the backup? No.
No, Stephen Bassett.
The home
The
number.
home number.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So, yeah, I that was a bad turn of events. Right? Why didn't you jump in and save me?
Because at a point, you ever...
Yeah, it was too fun.
You know when you see like somebody rip the flies or the wings off a fly, and you're at to the point where you're like, oh my God, why is he doing that? But you still want to see what happens.
Sure.
Yeah, kind of like watching a train wreck or something. Yeah.
Now, I have heard them talk. People ask them, why do people hate New Jersey so much? And that is why they wrote the books. But, oh well.
It's North New Jersey too. That's really bad. Trenton, Hoboken.
They did have their own defense and said West Virginia. So yeah.
Yeah, I know it's hard. It's hard to make fun of a state
when you're here. Yeah, but hey, you know what? I like West Virginia. I love West Virginia, and I bet you New Jersey's nice too. But I don't remember ever going to New Jersey. So.
Me too.
Well, you've been to New Jersey, haven't you?
I don't know.
It's like a suburb of New York.
I've been to New York. It's not the same. I don't know if we went back and forth.
Yeah, I give up.
Okay, gentlemen, we have our guest on the phone.
Alrighty, up next we have Mr. Stephen Bassett from Paradigm Research. He's going to talk to us about the X Conference. How you doing, Stephen?
I'm doing just fine. Glad to be with you.
So the conference was it last weekend? Weekend
yes.
before last? Okay. Something big happened there. What was it?
Well,
several bigs.
The most important thing that happened was that we held a press conference afterwards. We do this every time at the National Press Club, because this conference, along with everything else that Paradigm Research Group does, has one goal, and that's the advocacy for disclosure. Everything else is wonderful, but secondary. And disclosure, of course, is with a capital D. It means the formal acknowledgement of the ET presence by the governments of the world, probably, but not necessarily, starting with the United States. So our press conference this year was bigger and stronger than in the past. We had a substantial audience of about 70 in a number of press and media. Significantly, CNN live streamed the entire conference over its website, which, of course, is worldwide. We got a strong article in the Washington Times and the Washington Post, and a number of other articles, mostly centered, of course, around Edgar Mitchell, who was the feature of this press conference, but not the only announcement.
Now Edgar Mitchell being, just for people that don't know who he is.
Edgar Mitchell is, of course, the Apollo 14 astronaut who was the sixth man to walk on the moon, which is great. I mean, just because you walk on the moon doesn't mean you're an expert about things, but what makes you great is what it takes to get there.
Yeah.
Which included a Ph.D. in aeronautics and astronautics from MIT. Also the founder of the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and an amazing man who has written several books on exploring not only space, but inner space, the human consciousness. He's into quantum mechanics, a lot of other things. Anyway, Edgar did something he'd never done before. He had talked repeatedly about the fact that the individuals that he has spoken with sufficient number of people to be absolutely convinced that the extraterrestrial presence is real, which it is. And he has spoken about that. Now, Gordon Cooper also spoke out about this, but years ago, when it was a lot more difficult, and he'd actually had direct sightings. He tried to get the UN involved. So Edgar and Gordon are the two astronauts who have had the most to say on this subject matter. Both of them, of course, are great men, and Gordon Cooper, really the Mercury astronaut legend. So Edgar's talked about this for 10 years and created some media events. He spoke on Kerrang Radio last July in London, and Europe is really passionate about this issue and to generate a huge amount of media. But then that cycle ended. But what he did differently this time is he called for the administration to end the truth embargo. He basically was saying, look, put all the information out there and end this embargo. That was new, and the press was intrigued about that. So we had quite a bit of coverage, 40-some articles, 4 or 5, 6 interviews, mostly CNN. And that news cycle has ended, and we're working on the next one.
I already noticed you have X Conference 2010 already up on your website. Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're already booked, ready to go for the next one. Now, the last time we had you on here, we talked about the million facts on Washington, and then I think that was the first time we had you on. Then we had you on with the booking briefing book that was online, where people could post, things they wanted to add to. Do you have any updates on the success or failure of those projects?
Oh, no failure.
No failure? Good.
Oh, no.
Good.
No failure.
Get past that, then.
The Million Facts in Washington is actually a 3-phased petitioning process to the new administration, planned some time ago. The first phase was to direct as much correspondence as possible to the transition offices for the new president after the election, November 4th.
Okay.
And it ran from November 4th to January 20, the Inauguration Day. And thousands of letters and emails. No fax number was really available. They did not put one out for the transition office. As were sent to the new president. Then the second phase started the day after inauguration to send letters, faxes, and emails to the White House. All of this is based at a website called faxonwashington.org. Fax meaning, of course, F-A-X, not F-A-C-T-S.
Sure.
There's also a fairly well-trafficked group page on Facebook, Million Fax on Washington, and one can join that and get the information there as well. And the information being, what are the key talking points, and where do you send all this stuff? We're not presenting some script, some automatic script where you just send it in. This is not effective.
Yeah.
When they get thousands of the same thing, they just discard it.
Sure.
We expect people to write it up, but the key talking points are at this website, and the key points that most people are including, one or more, in their correspondence to the new president, are: one, demand and receive a complete and full briefing on the subject. No need to know stuff. I'm the president. I want to know everything. Secondly, support the ramping up of congressional hearings. We're going to need a lot of them, and he needs to let the Congress know that he expects that. And three, disclosure itself, which is the ultimate act, which is what we're going to have, which is to acknowledge the ET presence and perhaps be the first nation to do so. And four, and this is the big one, in my opinion, it's the prize in the Cracker Jack box. We want that technology. We want the ET technology, whatever they've got, and we're almost certain they have some, and we think they've been working on it for a very long time. And while it's not certain, I think progress has been made. And this is new physics, the kind of new paradigm-changing physics that could really give us a leg up in dealing with the problems we have. And that tech, the ET propulsion and energy systems that drive those craft that they I think have had access to, it simply hasn't been available because the truth embargo would not permit it. They knew that if they brought that tech out, there was no way they were going to convince anybody that they just stumbled across this in their laboratories.
Now, how close do you think? I mean, you had the paradigm clock. That's what I first remember. You about the paradigm clock being. How close are we to disclosure? And where would you say that the clock sat out right now?
Well, I published it initially in 1999, but it was retroactively published in 1947.
Sure.
Which is when the Doomsday Clock was created. That's another clock that most people, certainly my age, know about.
Yeah.
Which is midnight on the Doomsday Clock was nuclear war, and they created that clock to make people aware of that. What your governments are doing out there could get us close to nuclear war, maybe further away. So I created the paradigm clock. In 2006, based upon developments that I was aware of and the overall circumstances, I moved that clock to 15 seconds to midnight, which meant, and as I stated at that time, that disclosure could happen at any time. I thought it might happen under the Bush administration. No, I didn't think. It probably wasn't likely, because they desperately needed to change the subject. They really needed to do something dramatic because the administration was going down in flames. However, since then, I've sort of learned that I think that Bush was never acceptable as the disclosure president, and it wasn't going to happen, that the internal committees that run this thing are not going to let that happen. But at the time, certainly the possibility was there. So overall, since then, I felt disclosure was at hand, and so it's still 15 seconds to midnight. And I believe that disclosure is closer than it's ever been, so I'm not going to change the clock.
Now, has there been any indication, from the Obama administration, from, I know Podesta was always kind of an interested party in this. I'm not sure if he's involved now. I'm not too familiar with what's happening right now. But do you think that there's any indication at all that this is going to happen?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
no overt indication. I mean, they're not going to send out a press release.
Sure, of course.
But we have carefully watched the actions of the Obama administration from the day he became president, and disclosure is written all over them.
Now, can you give what if for the layperson out there that's not involved totally in this, what can you tell them? What kind of indications have you seen?
Let me make an important point here.
Sure.
And this may be a little tricky for some, but I think I can state it. There is a huge difference between simply waiting for something to happen and then looking at it and saying, well, that looks like it supports this premise, and that looks like it maybe supports this premise, which you can do. Happens all the time, right? Perfectly understandable. And then you can make some assessments about that. Well, and since those things happened and that seems to support an idea, then maybe that's what's going on. There is a big difference between that and, based upon what you know is going on, predicting ahead of time and anticipating what may take place and having that take place. All right? That in terms of assessment, in terms of analysis, it is one thing to sort of pick supportive ideas out of a previous mix. It's another to sort of predict in advance, this is what should probably happen, and then have that unfold. When that takes place, the implication of what you're seeing towards the premise that you're holding is far more powerful. All right? Now, in the case of the Obama administration, a huge number of things happened that I predicted, in a sense, and anticipated would take place if disclosure was on the table, which I thought it was. First of all, I expected him to deal with the FOIA Act. I expected him to deal with the Presidential Records Act, and I expected him to continue to push open transparency. He did that immediately. The next day, after being inaugurated, he signed a memorandum which called on all government agencies to start operating in a more open and transparent fashion, with the emphasis on the people's right to know. Secondly, he signed a memorandum in which he indicated that the Freedom of Information Act needs to be interpreted more in favor of the people seeking the information as opposed to people holding it. A significant thing which will help get more and more documents, which of course undermines the truth embargo. And then he signed a presidential order reversing the restrictions placed on the Presidential Records Act by George W. Bush, which made it difficult to get records from the presidential archives, particularly President Reagan's and his vice presidential records of Bush's father, which is noted with interest at that time. Mm-hmm. All of these are resonant with disclosure. We were very impressed with that. Then he selected individuals to key positions in government that are connected to the UFO issue by either their own comments or back through the Rockefeller Initiative, the attempt by Lawrence Rockefeller to end the truth embargo and make Bill Clinton the disclosure president between 1993 and 1996. Okay. This was extraordinary. Hillary Clinton was connected to it. He made her a Secretary of State. Bill Richardson had come out calling for opening all the files on Roswell and getting to the bottom of it, which he said had not been explained by the government. He tried to make him Secretary of Commerce. He selected John Podesta, who was called for the release of UFO records twice openly, and of course was a key advisor to Clinton during the Rockefeller Initiative. He made him the head of his transition team. And Leon Panetta, who was the chief of staff to Bill Clinton during the Rockefeller Initiative, he made head of the CIA. He then put two top physicists in key positions, one at the Office of Science and Technology Policy as the science advisor, and the other as the head of the Department of Energy. The likelihood that all of these things are just coincidence and not related to what we anticipate is the disclosure process is millions to one. Sure. Furthermore, he oh boy, it slipped the mind here, but there's something else that I'll get back to.
Well, let me ask real quick: why, if he set all this up already, mm-hmm. and he's got a staff behind him supporting him that all are, I guess, backing up the release, the whole disclosure, why haven't we got it yet?
Well, first of all, the principal reason for that is simple. We're talking about a new administration coming into office with a. You have to have some time to get settled in. You have certain people to connect with. You have certain foreign leaders to deal with. You have certain trips to make. And in his case, he had an extraordinary array of immediate crises that had to be addressed. You just don't walk into office and the next day say, oh, by the way, there's ETs here. Secondly, Obama is not really orchestrating this, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. This decision to I think for the Democrats to disclose was made back in 2000 after the Bush took office. The disclosure process is well underway.
Are you saying that this is a political maneuver or for other reasons?
Anything a president or a party does is political. But in the interest of the country, mm-hmm. I believe the Democrats made a decision that when they got back in office, they were going to disclose, because the pressure on the truth embargo, of course, was immense by the time Bush was elected in 2000. Now, it took them 8 years. They thought they were going to get back in 4 years. It took them 8 years. But it was this decision that I think tripped John Podesta to publicly call for the release of all UFO documents to support the creation and the promotion of the Coalition for Freedom of Information, which was funded by the Sci-Fi Channel. It was this decision that prompted Bill Richardson to write in that book in 2004, the foreword to the Roswell Dig Diaries, that the Roswell explanation by the government did not hold water. A very significant by a man who was already planning to run for president, and was a very high on the presidential pick list. But they didn't win, so they needed 4 more years. So I think the decision was in the works, regardless of who the Democrat won. Now, as it happens, who is president matters to the military intelligence community.
Sure.
They did not like Bush, and I don't believe there was any sentiment within the community to have Bush be the disclosure president. And they did not like Clinton, and there was very little sentiment for him to be the disclosure president. However, as we approached the election in 2008, I think they were comfortable with all 3 candidates. Obama, for various reasons, Hillary Clinton, and John McCain. John McCain is obvious. I don't think anybody might need to go there.
Sure.
Hillary Clinton had become a pretty tough centrist by the time that campaign was well underway, and I think had mended any fences that her husband had damaged with the military intelligence community, was taking a pretty hard line on Iraq and what have you, and is relatively well respected. I think they could have worked with her as a disclosure president. Obama was strong for different reasons. One, probably the most significant reason, was the fact that he wasn't innocent on the issue. There was no basis to think that he had any foreknowledge of the reality of this ET presence. He might have had a personal opinion. He's a smart man. He can read the news. But he certainly had no public position. And therefore, as an innocent on the issue, if he is the disclosure president, it really is all plus, all upside, no downside. He can't be attacked for having delayed or withheld it. He can't be accused of mendacity on the issue. He's in fact doing exactly what he said: open transparency. This is a strong.
Well, that's what he ran on. He ran on a change.
Yeah.
From us hiding everything.
Yeah.
Under Bush to
right.
Jordan, you had a question?
Yeah. I found an article actually that was posted today that quotes you at the X conference saying, either, to the administration, either disclose the reality of extraterrestrial presence by June or prepare to face the onslaught of the media.
This is a paraphrase of what I said, but it's close. I wasn't as clear as I wanted to be. I did make a joke there, but it was an intentional joke, namely, this is not a threat. You don't threaten the United States government. It's very heavily armed. And that's true. It isn't a threat. It was basically a statement of PRG's advocacy agenda. Right? It was saying this is what we're going to do. All right? And because a threat really implies, if you don't do something, I'm going to harm you. That doesn't really match the situation. But it was a strong wording. And yes, as I indicated before, there is a 3-part petitioning process underway that was planned long ago. And the first phase I told you about. The second phase, of course, started when he took office, and was to run through the first 100 days, because we knew it was nothing much was going to happen right away. You simply don't come into office and announce the ET presence.
Yeah.
You got to get squared away, and so fine. But we knew he needed to do it quickly. If the Democrats want to get the most out of this, they've got to do it quickly, early. If they don't, then the embargo becomes their embargo. And now they've got to explain why they sat on it for however long, while we faced what? Name all the crises you want to name.
Yeah.
Right? Why they sat on the technology, why that isn't out there now, why did you hold on to it? So they have this huge opportunity to do it. And, of course, the political capital for a new president is very high during those first days.
Yeah. So why pick June?
Well, here's the reason why we extended it. Initially, Phase 3 was to start on May the 1st. But because of the significant number of crises that he's facing, it's too unrealistic. So we extended another 31 days to May 31st. That's enough time for him to get settled in. That's enough time for him to at least get positions out there on the key issues. They need to disclose to take advantage of this huge window of opportunity that's opened So if he hasn't disclosed, if they haven't disclosed by the end of May, we go into phase 3 of the Million Facts on Washington, or this petitioning process, as it were.
Now, I know I was reading the day before I left to come over to the studios. Arlen Specter, of course, Republican senator from Pennsylvania, has now switched to a Democrat, giving the Democrats a 60-seat,
yes.
They're filibuster proof at this point. Does that, you being someone that's into exit politics, is significant to you at all? Or
It is, and I'll tell you why. With Specter switching parties and assuming that the Minnesota race is finally resolved, and
that could go on for years.
Well, no, no, it can't.
It seems like it would. It's
no, it
just,
can't.
I wish
Trust
it was
me,
over.
It won't.
Yeah.
It's near the end right now.
I hope so.
The Senate, let me put it this way: there will be an end to it, and it'll be fairly soon. Now, if Franken takes over, well, okay, fine. This gives them a strong majority in the House and a pretty strong majority, including above 60 in the Senate. This is non-trivial, and here's why. Look, this is the disclosure of the extraterrestrial presence will be the most profound event in human history, in my view. Some may disagree. But from the standpoint of how many people it impacts, how quickly it impacts, how many changes it could effectuate in a short amount of time, nothing comes close, right? Now, this is a big deal, and there are all kinds of political implications, financial implications, and social implications. And the party in power, obviously, that does this, is going to be at the center of the storm with a lot on his plate. Now, which means is, you have to respond to this, you have to respond to that. Well, if we don't have heavily divided government, which we've had most of the last 30-some years, most of the time we've had divided government where the president party and the congressional majority party were different, which makes it a lot harder to get things done, which sometimes is an asset. Maybe you don't want things to get done. But when you're dealing with crises, when you're dealing with extraordinary history, it helps to be able to get things done. So this additional strength of the party, I think, makes it easier for the Democrats to pull the trigger on this, or pull the switch, rather, on this event. So I see that as a plus. But you never know. The final point to make is this.
Sure.
The feet turn to clay in this town pretty readily. And so you always have to be on alert for clay feet. So the main factor in Washington, this 3-part initiative, is fundamentally, disclosure is inevitable. The only question is when. And how well, how good do they do it? How comprehensive, how thorough, how truthful, all that. But it's inevitable, but when? And when matters now. I think we don't have a lot of time left to dally any further in this surreal situation that's been created.
Now, do you think any other country is going to beat us to the punch?
Well, that's the point. That's the point. If they don't disclose.
Well, they're starting to. Other countries are starting to, aren't
they?
Well,
they're giving they're sending messages to us, but disclosure is the formal acknowledgement. That's it's like either pregnant or you're not. You either formally acknowledgement or you don't. Releasing files does not count, right? You got to go in front of your people and say the ETs are real, they're here. That hasn't happened. But if we don't disclose pretty soon, I think another nation will, and that is some message that they need to hear if they care. They may not care. Let France do it, and then we'll just follow suit later and whatever. I mean, that's their call. But I want them to know that we know enough about what's going on overseas that these other countries are making noises like they're going to do something if we don't act.
No, we can't let France go first.
Now, who do you think, if the U.S. doesn't do it, who do you think is going to be the first to jump in?
Well, I don't have any first-hand knowledge.
Nobody comes to mind?
There are countries that come to mind. I think there's a very significant benefit to China if they do this.
I hadn't even thought about China.
China is certainly aware of the ET presence. The Chinese government has no problem with people who want to research the subject. They even encourage it. There's indications that China, the government itself, researches this thing. You want to practice Falun Gong in China, you got a serious problem. You want to be a big-time UFO researcher? No problem. China has a very strong sense that they deserve more of a piece of the pie, more of the historical and modern legacy of the involvement of the planet. They feel like they've been orphaned. This would thrust them to the forefront very, very quickly. So you can't rule China out. France has made clear indications that they're not happy with the leadership of the United States of late. And they're very sensitive to their own legacy and their own place in the scheme of things. You have to put them on that list.
Yeah.
Russia, I don't know. It's hard to say with Russia. It's very hard to read them. So I have no thoughts one way or the other. Certainly they can do it. The United Kingdom is done enough that it might very well act as Canada, possibly Australia. But those three countries are so close to us that I suspect that they would just bend over backwards before they would preempt the United States on this. So there you have it. There's also, I think, South America clearly would like to have a greater role in the world affairs and is starting to make those kinds of noises. So
I was thinking Brazil would probably be one of the
Brazil,
first.
Mexico, these are two nations that might step forward to do it.
Well, it was the Mexican government that released the video from the military plane, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, what was more important about that was not so much the video itself. It may very well have been that they mistook flares from the offshore oil rigs. What was important about it was that they made such a big deal about transferring the film to a research group in Mexico City, had a press conference, signed off on it. So as a message to the United States, it was beautifully crafted. If they were trying to send a message, folks, we've been having craft all over our country, flying in our skies since 1991. We got video, we got film. Why ever they're hanging with us, we don't know. But it's getting a little awkward, right?
Yeah.
We need to resolve this issue. And if they deliberately chose a video, which ultimately is not, may not have been of a UFO, may have been just a mistake of oil flares. In a way, they're sort of protected on both sides. The video itself will not trip disclosure. It's not going to be deciding in any way. But the message of the way they did it to the U.S. was pretty clear. So again, the situation with Paradigm Research Group is to, one, get this information, make sure the new administration understands this, that the truth embargo days are numbered, that they have a great opportunity here, and that if they don't take that opportunity, a nation will. And with that in mind, Phase 3 of the Million Facts on Washington, this petitioning effort, begins on June the 1st. And all I will say about it at this point is that if it unfolds as it is designed, it will be pretty significant. So significant that it in and of itself may force the government's hand.
Now, don't get me all excited about something that's not going to happen. Like,
it's going to happen.
June 1st, I'm going to turn on the news and something big's going to be going on.
No, it starts on June the 1st.
Okay, June 2nd.
Okay, and it will fill the month of June.
Okay.
But going to shoot off a rocket or something on June. You will see it unfold, and you will know very quickly that something significant's going on here.
Now you're probably hoping to get the major media involved. I'm guessing. Is this something I'm going to be able to turn on CNN and see, or is this something that's going to be on the internet focused? Or, I mean, how significant are we talking here?
How are we going to know something's going on?
The answer to those questions is yes, 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 and yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, we were waiting for you to say something. Okay. So this will be something that everybody will recognize. And of course, unless May, sometime in May, he says, "Hey, we have UFOs." Then you can kind of back away from.
No,
this.
if the disclosure takes place,
that the goal has been achieved.
We're
exactly.
We're not going to do it. But again, it's not a threat. I'm just simply
saying. Oh no. We don't think it's a threat.
We're going to take the advocacy to another level. Exactly how that's going to be done has already been set. However, there are certain preparations that have to be made, and that'll happen in May.
Good.
I don't anticipate any problems with those preparations. However, anything can happen. For instance, if a war starts in the Middle East, or Iran gets bombed, or if somebody sets off a nuke in the United States, it's going to be tough. I mean, everybody's going to have to assess their plan.
Yeah, we wouldn't hold it against you if you delayed.
There's bigger things that have to worry about.
Yeah, but let me make an important point here. I believe the disclosure should I don't care what happens. They're making a big mistake if they don't disclose. They have to resist the temptation to use anything as an excuse.
Yeah.
I don't care what terrorists do or who blows what up or who invades what. This idea that, oh, no, we can't. No. they don't understand that disclosure may be the door they have to pass through to ultimately get us away from these kinds of things. Grotesque terrorism, endless fear, environmental issues, degradation, wars over water, wars over thirst. This is the door, I believe, to dealing with that. It's just a difficult door to open. We're helping them open that door. But if they lock it again simply because somebody does something stupid, this will be a huge mistake. This is a message that we will continue to pound in their direction.
Yeah.
So, as it happened, remember, the X conference wrapped up on April the 20th with a number of presentations. Remember, Edgar Mitchell announced that he wanted to embargo over. Milton Torres, the major, a retired U.S. Air Force major who was ordered to shoot down a UFO and then told he could not talk about it and didn't for 50 years until the UK released the report of that event. The blip on his screen was the size of an aircraft carrier. He was fairly relieved when it sped away at 6,000 miles an hour or thereabouts. He called for the end of the embargo. Nick Pope updated the press on the UK developments. Richard Dolan announced his new book, the second in the trilogy on UFOs and the national security state, and Roger Lear made the initial announcement there was more coming regarding an extraordinary implant removed from a contactee abductee back in September.
Oh, wow.
Right? I mean, this is the physics. This is complicated stuff. It's not the average person cannot listen to this and go, wow, but people that understand science can. And so there's been a major breakthrough in his work. All that was announced April the 20th, as planned, with the idea that the 100 days would be over May 1, or I'm sorry, would be over April 30, and that the new phase would start May 1. So we were right on schedule, but I made the decision that it just was not. It was a mistake. I think a public relations mistake for PRG to launch the third phase of Maine, Facts on Washington in May the 1st, given what the president is facing, and given he's working as fast as he can. So we extended 31 more days because it's appropriate, right? I mean, all activism and all politics has timing involved.
Yeah.
It's not, anybody who thinks you just get what you want when you want and you just yell and scream and no, and that ain't the way it is. However, something very notable happened on April the 20th, which is very few people know about this. I'm still trying to get the full details, but according to CNN, now this is off of CNN. This is not some phone call I got from somebody. CNN indicated in one of their bulletins, briefly, that John Podesta had issued a statement to them, right, just to CNN, in which he, I sense, reaffirmed what Edgar was saying in that press conference. In other words, this was issued shortly, not that long after the press conference at the National Press Club, calling for, again, the release of all these UFO documents. Now, I don't have the exact wording on it, but that's the gist of it. Now, Podesta didn't have to do that.
Sure.
But he did. And that, to me, was a clear message from the man who was the head of the transition team.
Yeah.
And is still a major player because, of course, he's the president and CEO of the Center for American Progress, which is a very, very significant think tank. It is emerging as the American Heritage Foundation of the new progressive era. He's very close, of course, to the Clintons, and he's a major player. But he's a behind-the-scenes guy. So that's the third time that he's publicly stated he wants those UFO documents revealed. And I can assure you he's not taking these risks simply because he's trying to clean up the files in the government and just reduce the paperwork, okay? Meaning, gee, if we got all that stuff out, we wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. Trust me, that's not it.
So how close are we to midnight right now?
Again, we're 15 seconds away.
And any chance of moving that after what happened the 20th? Any chance of it getting closer?
Yes, it advanced it, but I don't want to.
Not officially advanced, but
standing here and putting out notices that I've moved 5 seconds closer. You know what I'm saying?
We're 3 seconds now.
Yeah, no. 15 seconds means it could happen any time. Now people say, well, you've indicated that it's too early for the Obama administration. You're absolutely right, but it could happen in France tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we're right there. Now we have to close this deal. The American people have to close this deal. So first and foremost, I need them to go to factsonwashington.org or to the Facebook group, Million Facts on Washington. Get the information which they can get from whitehouse.gov. The White House provides a mailing address, a fax, and, of course, your email contact page. And for the icing on the cake, you can leave a comment on the comment line. But don't just leave a comment in the comment line. That disappears into the electronic void. You got to send. The best thing you can do is send a letter. That's the most powerful thing. Everyone is open, I guarantee it. But the best thing you can do is send a letter, a fax, and an email. But at least the letter is the most powerful of the three. We need as many of those to keep going in. Keep firing those in. They're accumulating down there. Trust me, thousands of them. This sets the stage. The more of these that are in there, think of them as kindling. Right? That are sitting down in those files in those offices. So when June 1st starts, we move to close the deal. I think we have the best possibility of making this happen. But the American people need to say, every person that tells them this is what we want makes it easier for them to do it. Now, I admit in the past the government has been really good at basically telling the people to pound sand. Yeah, you want this, you can't have it. But this administration seems to be singing a different tune.
And the website is faxonwashington.org. .org.
And of course, it's linked from my major. Everything I'm talking about is linked from my major site, the major home site for PRG, which is ParadigmResearchGroup.org.
Okay, we actually have that linked up to our website for all of you to check out and go see. whispersradio.com. It's right there. Got a nice little picture of Mr. Stephen Bassett and his website right underneath him. Get letters out there. Is this a letter thing we're waiting on June 1st to start writing out? Or is this what you want us to do today?
Well, he wants to get the kindling under the fire.
No, get everything out there. Get everything out there.
Okay, get it out there.
Sooner the better.
Third phase will start when it starts. You'll know about it. You'll receive emails and you'll receive press releases on it. You'll get all that stuff. I'm sure you're on my list, right? You get my PRG material.
I don't know if I do or not.
Well, if you don't, you better email me right away.
I will email you right away. I think I've received something, but I'll email you again.
Just in case.
We'll get it straightened out. Stephen, that's all the time we got for you today. I want to thank you very much for sharing with us what you did, and we're going to do our best to get the word out for you.
Let's make it clear. If the people that want disclosure, the people that don't want it, fine. That's great. Don't do anything. Just be cool. But those that want it need to say so now. It's been 62 years. If you want disclosure, you feel this is in the best interest of the nation and our planet, you need to tell them now. Don't just sit back and wait for it to be handed to you. Tell them. It will make a difference.
All right,
thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Good
Mr.
luck.
Stephen Bassett from the Paradigm Research Group.
So what do you think is going to happen June 1st?
I don't know. I'm kind of nervous to... I'm excited to experience it. I think it's going to be I don't know.
You're going to have your popcorn out watching CNN?
It's going to be some big media event if he threatened do it by June or face the media.
He said that was a paraphrase. It wasn't a threat.
Well, I mean, but...
just
if you throw out or face the media in any way,
of course.
It's going to be some media outlet.
Of course, if it's just another press conference.
And what?
I don't know.
Face the media and what?
That's what I'm.
Do you really have the mainstream media behind you on this?
And that's kind of what I'm. I was a little concerned about it, but maybe he does. Who knows? I doubt it, but
Well, I mean, CNN covered his conference.
They did do that
online,
not
on headline news, and they covered the alien autopsies, and they've covered that Bigfoot thing, So
it's always though a little tongue in cheek, which yeah, of course. I mean, I understand. I mean, I'm hope we were talking about countries disclosing it. I was thinking when he was finishing up there, what if the other party disclosed it, which would be ET decides to just land on the White House lawn and say, we're not waiting for you. Here we are.
They've only been around supposedly for
he said 62 years.
You say we only like libertarians.
They've been around since
we've been waiting for Ralph Nader.
The pyramids.
Yeah, of course.
And they have yet to. Yeah. Why should they disclose themselves?
Exactly.
What? So we can have our military firing at them,
Well, that's already happening. So, I mean, in other words, they'd have no reason to do it. No, they can do whatever they want to do, and who cares what we do,
Yeah, we're like
an ant colony.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice that he's, can bluster about and say, well, you better do this, or... Mm-hmm. But I'm asking, or what?
Yeah, do you think it'll ever happen, Lo?
No.
You don't think it'll ever happen?
No.
And when he mentioned China, China would probably be, I would see them doing it, and I'm wondering how much would we pay attention to that?
To what end?
Exactly.
To what? Seriously, to release all of this stuff, to what end?
I think if they ended up disclosing it, it probably wouldn't be an official disclosure. Let's say if, hypothetically, that they're able to get some type of technology. If they have that technology, they're not going to disclose that they have it. They're going to use it.
That's right. And
then we'll be like, where the heck did they get that?
All right. So, it's supposedly with Roswell. They did reverse whatever.
Engineering.
Yeah.
I think of the patents and the legal issues that would arise if all of a sudden it was disclosed that, well, actually it came from, a UFO that was downed or so. It would just open up all kinds of legal doors and,
Well, that's what they were, was it Joe Montaldo that was talking about Corso was releasing, the back engineered, and he would release it to, Lear, here's something that you can use, research this and, and use it, however you see fit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way that they had released it, probably because, like you said, the copyright, patents, and it's an interesting subject.
It's all politics, dang it.
It is all politics, and I don't think we're going to see... I don't think it's 15 seconds till midnight. I think we're 5-10 minutes till midnight.
What about Kim Jong-il?
The aliens don't
know.
What if he shoots? Like, he could release and nobody would believe him.
I don't think... honestly, with all of the skepticism and everything that has gone on over the years about aliens, do they exist, what do they do, I don't care who it is. A government is not going to disclose any of this stuff for the fear of looking foolish in the eyes of the rest of the world.
Sure.
Can you see the Obama administration just actually standing up and saying, yes, here's the proof? I just...
They would have to have... Obama would have to be there with an alien ambassador next to him.
Yeah.
We would have to have somebody pulling on the head, making sure it wasn't fake.
Absolutely. It's opening themselves up to ridicule, and it's just never. It would have to be not going to happen.
Yeah, it'd have to be so grand, and you couldn't just go up to a podium and say, "Okay, we've been talking to ET." People would want proof there.
Well, and even if they release all the documents,
sure,
just say they'd release them all. So much of it would be blacked out in the first place. They would claim national security, and then everybody depending on which side of the fence you're on, you believe or you don't believe, the other side is going to say it's made up, it's a stunt. The ones that believe are going to say this isn't. I'm not buying it. This isn't all of it.
If they disclose and it's like, okay, here's everything. There's nothing there. They're going to all of a sudden come out saying they're hiding it. And then of course the other group's going to it's never going to end.
Well, wasn't it
I
just
don't see it ever
weeks ago where the 5 older gentlemen, 80s, 90s years old, claimed that they worked at Area 51 and what they did there and how they
were saying it was more
fighter planes and
we go back to he was saying that Mexico was showing was trying giving it a signal to the United States. I'm thinking, what if Mexico's giving a signal because they know that we're flying top secret jets over their airspace,
and we have video of it, and look what we have.
Exactly. We don't know what's behind all of it. I would love for disclosure to happen, but I don't know. I'm skeptical that it's going to happen.
Well, and look at everyone's attitude toward our government. We don't believe anything they say.
We don't believe anything at all.
Yeah. So, even if they would release it, it would be met with such cynicism and skepticism that I just don't believe they'll
we
ever
wouldn't
do
buy
it
anyway.
How did we get to this point where we don't believe anything they say?
Because we've finally caught them in too many lies.
Yeah.
That's the
Watergate.
sad thing. Yeah.
Oh, well.
I don't know. It's too bad, but I don't think we'll ever see the day.
See, I feel bad for the people like what did he call them? Contactees.
Mm-hmm.
The people that are being ridiculed because they're being visited daily, weekly, monthly, throughout their life. If they're getting some kind of contact, if they're going out there and, even if they mention it, ridiculed to the high heavens, they have to be.
Yeah.
I just feel bad for those people that, instead of, being praised or
giving
credit. I mean, they're sent to therapy and called crazy.
Yeah. It's most of them just want to be listened to and told, okay,
validated.
Yeah.
Okay, it happened. We're sorry. That would be enough.
Here's another thing too. If our government truly believed and had proof that this stuff was real, do you honestly think that there would be a single person that is considered a contactee or whatever that would not have been brought in and scoped and prodded and everything, used like a lab rat?
Well, I think, wasn't that what Joe Montaldo was talking about with the guest we had on a couple weeks back?
Yeah.
About the mill labs, that these were, these contactees have been visited by UFOs, abducted, and then we had our own mill labs, which were our U.S. government abducting people to research them to see why.
But wouldn't you think there'd be a huge hue and cry if our government were actually, abducting so many people?
Oh, yeah.
So, well,
you're going to open up a can of worms. No matter what happens, if you do disclose, there's going to be, right now, if let's say he's planning on disclosing, right now he would have to be planning an agency to handle all of this. I mean, you can't just release it. You have to have some way of reacting to it.
But you'd have to have more than just pictures and stories,
Of course.
Because look at all the videos on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I mean, just while he was talking, I was going through. I typed in Google UFO April 28th, 2009. Then I found all these videos of so-called UFOs on YouTube that are recent, within the week, within the month, and you can fake video so easily.
Yeah.
You can fake photographs so easily. I mean, what proof could he really have that it's going to be,
like I said,
beyond
you'd
a
have
shadow
to
of
show
doubt?
up.
You would have to have direct contact, and not only would he have to have direct contact, and like Lola said, to be credible, I mean, he would have to be conferencing every day with ET in order to want to go out on a national scale and say something like that without being called.
Well, he'd have to have one with him. He'd have to have. I think at that point that's the only way people would believe. If he came out to the podium and behind him standing, Spock,
he could say he could go out today, right now. He can walk out on the podium and say, "I'm the president and I believe in aliens."
Is that what Jimmy Carter?
I mean, he could say that.
Yeah.
And we ridiculed Jimmy Carter for that.
He would be ridiculed. He would, and supposedly
he'd be a one-term president.
He's the one that we
he would
need.
Be impeached.
He would, yeah.
He's the one that we need the validation from to say. He's the one that has to say, yes, they have them. But even if he says, yes, I'm the president, I know a lot more things than you do, on this scale, and I believe, without saying, I've seen it, I have, he'd just say, I believe. He would still be ridiculed.
Yeah. Which candidate was it? And I can't believe I cannot remember his name.
Kucinich.
Kucinich. He was running, and they asked him the UFO question. I think they asked them all the UFO question. And Kucinich was honest, said, yes, I've seen... And they laughed at, and the next, it was like a week later, they were still, making fun of him on CNN, Fox, everywhere.
Yeah.
Look at this, loon. And all he said was, I think I've seen one. Let's talk about it.
And like Stanton Friedman said, when we had him, only few UFOs that we see are not of this world. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff that we see flying around, and just like you said with the Mexico thing, they could be government planes, not necessarily our government, another government. You don't know the tech. Germany had saucer, ships made. I
was watching that a little bit today. UFO Hunters has Nazi UFOs.
Yeah,
I haven't got a chance to watch the whole thing yet, but it looks interesting so far.
But I mean, they had entire divisions.
Yeah, in a mountain somewhere.
Making flying saucers. And I mean, you can find pictures of all these old...
the technology is there, to actually fly one.
Yeah. So you can't say that it's not in.
I know it.
Yeah.
Well, guys,
next week, Nikki.
Show
next week we
down.
have Heidi Hollis. She's going to be coming on with us talking about
her
Shadow.
New book.
Her new book. She's going to talk to called Picture Prayers. And she's also going to be talking with us about shadow people, which her book Shadow Wars covered.
Get us excited about the pen.
The Hat the Hat Man. We're going to talk about the Hat Man, what she calls the evil personified. It's going to be great.
Because shadow people is what the big thing that everybody's seen in the pen.
Yeah.
So this is going to be fun and get us excited about it.
I'd like to talk next week. I'd like if right now.
Scare me silly just before we go.
That's right. We're going to try our best. I'd like to talk. If you have a weird West Virginia story, call us. If you start thinking about them now, we'll open up next week 7 to 8 to talk about that. Jordan and I and Lola, if you can find some. We'll bring some here and talk about them.
Never know. Maybe the three of us are going to write a book, and your story could be in it.
Yeah.
You never know what the future holds.
We couldn't call it Weird West Virginia. We had to think of a new title.
That's all we got, everybody. Until next week, don't be afraid, only believe.